I'd never seen something like that before. We all know who Antonio Brown is. We all know the antics of Antonio Brown. Diva wide receiver who played for the Steelers. He was really good. He was a really good receiver for the Steelers. Really good receiver. I think he went to multiple Pro Bowls. He was a very famous guy. And then I remember in 2017 they were playing a game against the Ravens, and he wasn't getting the ball. And he takes the Gatorade container and just throws it. Like, he wasn't getting catches. And we were all just like, what? Like, dude, you're winning the game. And they eventually did win the game. But what? You gotta be a team player. And then within the next 2 years with the Steelers, we learned that he didn't really have a good relationship with Ben Roethlisberger. And he felt like he wanted to get the ball more. And then he essentially walks out of practice and then thinks he's going to play in a game against the Saints. And Mike Tomlin's like, nah, you ain't playing. We're not playing with you right now. And he essentially demands a trade. And the Steelers are like, we're going to trade you to Buffalo. And then he's like, no, I'm going to retire if you trade me to Buffalo. And then eventually he gets traded to the Raiders. And we all saw Hard Knocks with, his foot, which was the weirdest thing I've never seen a foot like that. Like, that foot looked like it had been through a saw trap. Like, not even gonna lie. And then he is like, oh, I'm so happy to be here with the Raiders. And then they're like, yo, you gotta change your helmet. You gotta get a new helmet. Because the helmet that you have is out of date. And he's like, no, I'm gonna spray paint my Steelers helmet silver and black. And they're like, you can't do that. And then he gets in this argument with the ownership and the head coach, and he's talking to them and then not talking to them, and then the Raiders are like, dude, we made this huge mistake, yo. we just traded for this guy and we wish we didn't. So they released him. And then Bill Belichick picks him up, the Patriots. And he plays in a few games with the Patriots. But what ended up happening was this woman, she put out allegations that he assaulted her, which is really serious. And I say allegedly because I'm not sure if it actually happened. But the Patriots released him because Bill Belichick is the biggest no-nonsense person in the NFL. They release him. And he's in free agency for about a year. He gets into a few other issues. There's this issue about he's moving to Florida, and he pays $5,000, and then he throws a fit, and he enters the truck and then takes people's stuff out of the vehicle, and he throws a rock at the moving truck guy or something like that. And just this guy who has this hot and cold temper. And a lot of people were making CTE jokes about this guy. And I don't know. I mean, nobody can know if you have CTE until after you die. But this is just one of those guys who you just wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. No matter how desperate you are for a top tier wide receiver, which Antonio Brown is a top tier wide receiver, you're just not gonna no one's that desperate. Well, the Buccaneers signed him. I think it was the middle of the season. I'm not 100% sure. And he wins a Super Bowl. And he's good friends with Tom Brady. Bruce Arians is yeah, I love the guy. Because obviously he signed him. And wins a ring with the Buccaneers. And like no one's really talking about him that much until this year with the whole COVID vaccine thing. And he gets a fake vaccine card. And he's thinking he can get away with it. Well, he can't. He ends up getting suspended for about a month because of his fake vaccine card. And he comes back after being injured for a little bit, plays against the Jets. You're thinking, all right, so the Jets are not a great team, but they play teams tough. And the Jets are beating the Buccaneers, which you're not thinking that that's supposed to happen. Well, in the middle of the game, he's Antonio Brown's talking to Mike Evans, and he takes his jersey off and he takes his shoulder pads off, and he throws it onto the sideline. Takes his gloves off and he throws it into the crowd. You know, you could see his he's shirtless, and he's like waving to the crowd, and he exits, and you're just like, what? Bro, I've never seen that. I've never seen that in a million years. I've never seen a player do that. You know, we all remember when Vontae Davis, he retired in the middle of a Bills game. But like, at least, you know, he wasn't making a show of things. Like, he had been in the league for like since 2008, like 10 years, 11 years. He just didn't like the situation he was in. So he just retired. Antonio Brown, just the way he did it was just weird. Like, we've all done that kind of thing that was just really stupid, and at the time we didn't recognize it was stupid, but everyone was like, yo, that was stupid. Yo, that was it. I don't really know what to say about it. He's just, I know a lot of people are going to say, well, the mental health. He could be having mental health issues, but at a certain point in time, you just have to act like an adult in public. Like, Antonio Brown, I think he's like 2 years older than me, and there's no way he acts like he's I think he's like 34, 35 years old. There's no excuse for acting that way at all. None. You can say what you want about his talent. He's a talented player. But I think, you know, Bruce Arians, who I don't really like, summed it up best. Antonio Brown is no longer a part of the Buccaneers. And, you know, I can't imagine at this point that there's anyone out there who would be willing to take him on. I don't think anyone out there would do that. No one would take him on as a wide receiver, even if they were desperate. No one would take them on. It's just not something that's going to happen. But you know, I hope that he spends this time to try to get his mind right, because that just seems like a guy who's trying to yell out for help, and it doesn't seem like the people in the Buccaneers, the members of the Buccaneers were able to help him out with any of that stuff. I think that he's the kind of guy who thinks that he can get away with whatever he wants to get away with without following any sort of rules. And a lot of people gravitate towards that. I remember Eagles fans wanted Antonio Brown. I would not have touched the dude with a 10-foot pole. Okay? What he would have done to this organization is kind of like T.O. on steroids. Like, you can compare him to T.O., but what T.O. did was bad, but one could say he had his reasons to do so. With what Antonio Brown did, bro, you were sitting pretty. You had Tom Brady as a quarterback. You had a Super Bowl championship and high odds to repeat. you would have etched your name in history with 2 Super Bowl rings. I can't imagine what's going on in his head. And, I said this before. I would rather have a wide receiver that could not catch on my team than a wide receiver like Antonio Brown. Because at least the guy who can't catch, at least he's not a tool chest. Okay? Because what Antonio Brown did, it's just tool chest behavior. And I don't have much sympathy for it. Because you got to be acting way better than the way you were acting before. I mean, you got to learn from it. And I know that he has kids, and I'm not even speaking at this from like a role model's perspective. Like, think of the kids, but like, I'd hope that in 15 years when my son looks at me, he's like, yeah, like, you know, you taught me well. Like, I'm not embarrassed by the things that you do. Like, you know how like the most important thing you do with your child is making sure that you don't give them a name that's going to get them picked on in school. The second thing you do is make sure that you don't embarrass them. And I feel like, well, I'm not here to speculate, but if I was Antonio Brown's son or child, I would just feel completely embarrassed by that behavior. Like, in 15 years, you're watching that. Of course, you love the guy, and my parents embarrass me all the time, but not like that. Like, that is just not adult behavior in any way. That's like worse than drunk fan behavior.